importance of this panel. We see what is happening in Gaza, we see what is happening in Iran, we see what is happening in DRC, in Western Sahara, in Kashmir, all over the world, occupations, genocides, settler colonialisms have either proliferated or they refuse to die. So it's important that we have these conversations as a pathway or as a nexus to a peace that is worthy of being called world peace. So on the panel we have Marcela, we have Mahfud Fadili, Rudolf Nsang, and Jihad Abdulmumit. We give them a big round of applause and welcome.
All right, thank you. Hi everyone. Mambo. Okay. My name is Marcela Agudelo. I'm from Colombia, and I am truly honored to be here, especially accompanying this conversation. I think we're going to have a very special closing for today. We were discussing previously with Mahfud that sometimes we experience reality like it has two different layers. One very formal about the rights and democracy and the legality, right? And then another different experience that we all have in everyday life, where all these things and all these concepts doesn't really apply. I think especially this conversation is going to bring us some light into how complex and how does it work, the complicity of a system that needs to be revealed. So thank you. I will introduce then Mahfud Fadili first, coming from Western Sahara. Also with us is Rudolf Nsang from Ambazonia, and is going to be closing Jihad Abdulmumit. So please, let's start. Okay, all right. ¿Quieres todo hablar en español?
Sí, es mejor. Por primero, discúlpame porque no voy a hablar en español porque no tengo un buen nivel en inglés. Por eso tengo la suerte que estoy cerca de mi compañera para traducir lo que voy a decir.
Okay. So first of all, please excuse me because I don't.
You can use this so that the sound is.
So excuse me because I will do my presentation in Spanish, but for fortune I am here to help a bit with this.
Ok, soy Mahfud Fadili del Sahara Occidental. Soy el presidente de una organización que se llama NOVO. Es un grupo que trabaja para la no violencia en el Sahara Occidental.
My name is Mahfud Fadili. I'm from Western Sahara. I'm the president of an organization called NOVA that works mainly in non-violence.
Nosotros somos un grupo que trabaja para la no violencia en el Sahara Occidental. Es un grupo fundado en el 17 de junio 2012. Estamos trabajando para difundir y culturizar la cultura de la no violencia y la paz, porque son el diálogo también, porque son las dos cosas que son más importantes para planificar un paz sostenible.
We are a group of people. Our organization is a group of people working on non-violence. We come together from 2002 and 12, and our main goal is to amplify non-violence and dialogue among the society, especially among the young people, as dialogue and violence are the factors that are the most important. Non-violence and dialogue are the most important factors in peace building.
Quiero avisar a vosotros que el Sahara Occidental es un país ocupado por Marruecos desde el 75. Quiero decir que yo y los otros jóvenes de nuestro grupo estamos nacidos en un campamento de refugiados, es un caso especial que trabaja para la paz o para la no violencia en unos campamentos de refugiados bajo de una ocupación. Es una cosa muy, muy difícil que trabajas para un paz o para la no violencia o para compartir tus conocimientos a otros jóvenes que han nacido bajo de una ocupación o un campamento refugiado. No es como un país, por ejemplo, liberado, puedes trabajar en la no violencia o algo así.
So I want you all to know West Sahara is an occupied country. It's occupied by Morocco since 1975. And so I was born in a refugee camp in Algeria, and I want to share the experience of being born and raised and going everyday life into a refugee camp is not an easy task, but it's not less of an easy task to spread about non-violence when you live under these very harsh circumstances.
Entonces, desde nuestros primeros años, desde el 2012, hemos haciendo muchas campañas, muchos talleres sobre la no violencia y la importancia de la no violencia para obtener una solución pacífica y para también que los jóvenes saben qué es la no violencia, qué es la paz. Pero en los últimos años hemos obtenido muchas dificultades para desarrollar o para fortalecer estas cosas. Quiero decir, después de la guerra entre, por ejemplo, Ucrania y Rusia, entre Palestina y Israel, muchos jóvenes ya no tienen, por ejemplo, confianza, ya no tienen una confianza en el mundo, porque hemos visto que todos los jóvenes dicen que hay una hipocresía pacífica. Ellos creen en la paz y la importancia de la paz, pero dicen que no hay una estrategia verdadera para practicar estos paz.
So since we start working after 2012, we've been working mainly with young people, but this has becoming more and more difficult as the young people is less interested or they trust less in the kind of work nonviolence can bring into a situation like ours. And especially after the Russian-Ukraine war, but also the Palestinian situation now, it has raised again a difficult task for us to talk about nonviolent means and why is it important and how can this bring some kind of solution in the middle of these sort of very, very complex activities in the world. So it's becoming more and more hard to raise some kind of conscience about what others are living and going through nowadays.
Entonces quiero decir que en casi todo el mundo, todos los jóvenes, todas las personas, todos los activistas, todos los gobiernos, cuando obtener unos de ellos, dicen que todos saben de la paz y la importancia de la paz, pero nadie o un poco de esta gente trabaja para llegar a un paz sostenible, a un paz mundial. Entonces, este es el problema. ¿Cómo podemos cambiar el mundo? ¿Cómo podemos quitar esta hipocresía política? ¿Cómo podemos practicar las legislaciones internacionales de una forma correcta, de una forma más correcta de lo que hemos visto ahora en estos años? Hasta ahora no hay.
Vale. So peace is many activists and young people thinks they know what does peace means, but there's no many people working actually on how to gain or to sustain a peace in the world nowadays. So working in this every day in the building of a sustainable peace is our global challenge, let's say. And even though people really think they know what we're talking about peace, we don't really know how to change the world. How do we transform the reality? How do we transform whatever is happening now in our reality? How can we touch these levels of hypocrisy and these levels on international relationships and jurisdiction that on the one hand says something about human rights, but on the other hand, it keeps people like us living under these kind of circumstances.
Entonces, por ejemplo, si ponemos una pregunta a cualquier persona en esta sala, o por ejemplo a una persona que tiene el poder para tomar decisión en el mundo, por ejemplo, si preguntas a Antonio Guterres, que es el representante de Unidos Nacionales, o pregunta a Putin o Biden, ¿te gustaría vivir en paz? ¿Te gustaría que tu país viviera en paz? Te dice sí, seguramente que no, pero en la realidad no practica esta respuesta. Entonces,
so maybe if we ask anybody in this room, would you like to live in peace? If we ask any of our presidents or governments about, would you like to live in peace? Everybody will say, yes, I would like to live in peace. I do like living in peace, but no one is trying to practice it, and no one is trying to make it a concrete reality for us.
Entonces, lo que tenemos que hacer como luchadores por la paz, que sabemos este problema y trabajamos para cambiar y para llegar a las personas que tienen la decisión, que tienen el poder de tomar una decisión, para también esta lucha, que creo que es una lucha muy larga y necesita mucho trabajo, porque es una lucha de no violencia.
So what we peace activists must do, and in order to obtain the attention and in order to get to those who have the power to intervene and change some stuff, we need to strengthen the ways for struggling from this side of non-violence and keep demonstrating why is this so important. This is the struggle for us today.
Por ejemplo, en mi pueblo, donde están los campamentos refugiados en Argelia, a veces organizamos unos talleres, obtenemos unas observaciones que algunos jóvenes nos dicen: oye, estás perdiendo tiempo, que estás trabajando por la no violencia, estás perdiendo tiempo. Si quieres llegar a tus objetivos o llegar a tu derecho, tienes que empezar en una lucha armada, no vas a perder nada. Por ejemplo, ellos dicen, estamos aquí desde...
So, for example, in the place where I come from, in the camp, so we have been observing how more young and more young people is telling us, hey, why are you losing your time? You know, you're losing your time trying to gain something from nonviolence, because look what we are experiencing. And why are you not trying to gain attention to an armed struggle? This cannot be transformed by nonviolent means. So they are being faced by the community and the young people that thinks this is actually not getting anywhere from the nonviolent means.
Lo que me gusta es que tengo muchas presentaciones de la no violencia, de estadísticas, pero me gustaría hablar con vosotros de lo que vivo yo realmente cada día en mi trabajo, en nuestros grupos de la no violencia. Eso es lo que vemos es entonces tenemos que saber a dónde, como dice nuestro profesor, que quién somos y para qué estamos trabajando. Si sabemos esto de forma real, de no hipocresía, podemos llegar a nuestros objetivos, aunque podemos pasar mucho tiempo, pero nos vamos a cambiar el mundo.
So even when I have a lot of information and presentations about nonviolence and statistics and other means to talk about this, I would really like to share with you more about our experience and our everyday life experience in the camps, and to say, honestly, this is what is challenging us now, because the level of hypocrisy that we are experiencing is getting us to this point where we really need to talk, as in the way the professor were saying before, to ask ourselves, who are we? And where we want to go from here? And how are we going to deal with these levels of hypocrisy that we all know that it's happening, but we cannot name or act on it?
Por final, quiero decir que cada uno de nosotros es un luchador, cada uno de nosotros puede cambiar de forma positiva a un mundo de paz si trabajamos juntos, si hacemos un gran esfuerzo. Entonces tenemos que saber para qué estamos aquí. No estamos aquí para, por ejemplo, decimos en nuestro currículum vitae que hemos participado en una conferencia de paz o de capacity de building peace. Tenemos que saber nuestro objetivo de forma real para llegar a ello. Muchas gracias.
So every single person that's in here is a peace fighter, and we need to realize and to converse with this, to have a conversation with this question about who we are and what we are really wanting to do, because the defiances are getting higher and higher, and the only way we can combine and get and reach wherever is if we combine and work together on developing this kind of structures and complexity that the system has in the experience we have. So I want to thank you all for listening.
Well, I think if we can all see, behind, then it's okay. We need to move. All right, just made it in the form of presentation, just so we could actually see some statistics. And thank you. All right. Well, my name is Rudolf Nsang, and already I want to say I'm grateful for this opportunity, and especially grateful to Professor Matt and also to IPRA, especially really a big thank you for this opportunity to talk about not just Ambazonia, but to also be here today. It's true that most of us know of Cameroon, but I'm very sure that most of us don't know of Ambazonia. Anybody knew of Ambazonia before? All right. Well, I mean, yeah. Some of us actually get to know about Ambazonia. And just like Ambazonia, there are also many other, struggles going around the world that nobody really cares about. And it is just the cycle of conflict. Whenever a new conflict comes, the old ones are being forgotten. Whenever a more important conflict comes, the ones that are less important are likely forgotten, just like Ambazonia. Just a brief introduction to this, and also talking about the states. Ambazonia, or the state of Ambazonia per se, is not yet consolidated, so it is not a country that you should know about anyway. That is why, it's just not yet consolidated. It is also a symbol of freedom for us, for me, for example, and it is a place of freedom. So every Ambazonian who will get to know who an Ambazonian is wants to get to this particular place of freedom. Just we are going to look at the history, some statistics, and also the way forward as far as this is concerned. Cameroon, if you look, you see Cameroon with K and not with C. So this is Cameroon. I'm just taking the history from when the Germans came into Cameroon, or colonized Cameroon, 1984. And they stayed there, 1818, sorry, that's a mistake, 1884, right on to 1918. I made a very big mistake there. And then after that, after the First World War, the British came, and the French, they jointly colonized the country. And the British got the West Cameroon, or what is today known as English Cameroon, Anglophone Cameroon, and the French got East Cameroon, what is today known as French Cameroon. Now, this is about 80% of the country, and this is about 20% of the country, or less than 20% of the country. And that's in 1961. Just before this, East Cameroon got its independence in 1960, and West Cameroon got its independence in 1961, October 1st, 1961. And then the two became one in 1961. So West Cameroon was a country, during colonialism, though it was one Cameroon before, but at some point it became a country and it was colonized by the British. It had its own status. And before it could gain independence, there was a question of whether West Cameroon should gain independence by joining French Cameroon or by joining Nigeria, northern Nigeria. And the choice was, we want to gain independence by joining French Cameroon, a place where we had been before. And there was a third question, which, according to historians, was not given, but it was written by the UN, but wasn't given, if West Cameroon would want to join independence by being an independent state. And that question wasn't given, so there was, an amalgamation, which happened in 1961. And then by 1972, with the development of political constitutions and so on, it changed from a federal republic into a united republic. Actually, one of the major reasons why the struggle of today is existing is people want to go back. Some people want to go back to the federal republic because at this level, there is control, of resources and so on in the different federations, unlike what is happening today. And of course, mainly, which has led to the conflict. So the former West Cameroon, just brief statistic, the population at the moment is at about 8 million. Actually, the last census in Cameroon was in 2005. So since then, we've not had any census. And of course, how the government uses such, for its own benefit. And the capital by then was Boya. The surface area, 42,383 kilometers square. And the languages here, the language here actually is English language. That's official because we were colonized by the British. And there are over 169 indigenous mother tongues or indigenous languages in this particular section, plus Pidgin English, which is spoken in the greater part of West Africa. Of course, it's the common day language. So this, some of you may have heard of Mount Cameroon or Mount Fako. Is the highest mountain in Cameroon. It's found in Boya, in the English section. And of course, many other resources, all the oil in Cameroon is found in the, Anglophone section. Now, the conflict started on the 1st of October 2016. Remember, I said that English Cameroon gained its independence on 1st of October 1961. So on the 1st of October 2016, it started with lawyers and teachers, moving out on the streets, saying, all right, we are tired of all what is happening, tired of a couple of things, a couple of reasons. There was the whole issue of language and culture, where in the French section, again, the government, which is French dominated, has been trying for a long time to completely take away the English language, because language is culture. It tells of the history of the people. And once you take away the history, then you've taken away the people. And also with the French policy of assimilation, which they implemented in the course of the colonization, that same kind of system they wanted to bring on upon the Anglophones. And it came in different ways. In education, for example, they would send French teachers to English schools. The legal system, they would send French lawyers to become, judges and so on in the English section of the country. Whereas there are two different judicial systems, the common law and the civil law in the French section. And that was not being respected. And there is the issue of poor governance, which still, is still common up to today. It's even worse now anyway, for those of you who have a little idea about Cameroon. And there is marginalization. We form the minority in the country, and that automatically means that there are a lot of opportunities which we don't get. Since 1961, we've never had a president, or we've only had two presidents anyway. And so there is no president who's come from the English section, and there is no hope of having a president from the English section, basically. And there's also been a lot of unequal distribution of opportunities in the country, and it's visible everywhere. And the government's unwillingness to react genuinely, or again, some wrong decisions, and especially cosmetic solutions, which they have been given to the crisis that has been going on now for up to 7 years. So this is how the crisis began in 2016. This is how it actually began. It was people moving out with peace plans. It's not very clear, but these plants are peace plants. They call them in the northwestern Cape. So whenever someone comes with a peace plan, if I have a problem against you, and then I hold a peace plan, I'm coming. No, I want the problem to be solved. I'm not coming for war. So that's how it started. But the government did not react positively. Rather, just a few. This picture was taken 2 years after the crisis started in 2016. There were many things that were being put in place. For example, there has been a ghost town in the northwest and southwest regions. Every Monday, every government public holiday, every day that the government has any official thing to do in the country or in the northwest and southwest, automatically is declared ghost town. So you can imagine how many ghost towns we've had or we have in 1 year since 2016 until today. And of course the effect on the economy and so on. So this is 2018. This is a picture of Kwakwa village. This is in Munyenge, sorry. This is a picture of before, and this is a picture of after. And this is another picture of before, where it's the same village but from different angles. This is a Google map picture which I got, which gave a better information of what happened to the village. So completely burnt down villages. Everybody left the villages and so on and so forth. At the moment, we have over 750,000 refugees in Cross River State, Nigeria. And we have over 1 million internally displaced persons, mainly in the cities of Douala and Yaoundé, which are the major cities. And of course, most of them come there without even knowing how to speak French. So you can imagine, what goes on with them. Of course, the government responded by burning down villages, internet deprivation. That's why most of you don't know about what's happening there, especially during peak periods. There's also the influx of intermilitary forces. You don't just walk in Bamenda like that. For example, you must always have your identification card on you. You must be clean. You don't need to keep any, funny, looking hair or so. You don't need to dress anyhow. The red color is a very bad color to dress in the northwest and southwest regions. And maybe, all these modern ways of dressing. As long as you dress good, it may look like you actually some kind of thief or scammer or an extremist fighter or something like that. So it's really affected the lifestyle of people. And there's also been a lot of arbitrary imprisonments and killings. There are many Ambazonians in the United States of America now, a lot who left during the crisis. And there are many more who are in different parts of the world, even here in Tanzania. I have a friend who is presently in Tanzania because she got tired of what's happening and came for a program with MTN Cameroon. And by the time they were looking for her, she had disappeared. So she ran away. She could not go back because of the crisis. So, and there are many more. Now, this is the response from Ambazonia. This picture came up by 2018. Through other period, I was in Bamenda, and this is the flag of Amazonia, which is behind here. And of course, if you find one person like this, there are thousands of people armed and now in the bushes. Of course, even in town, in the northwest and southwest regions of Cameroon. You can see some more picture of military vehicles being burnt down. These are armored vehicles, but they devise strategies to burn them down with not very sophisticated guns anyway. But gradually, they've got guns, they've got to have guns, and even develop bombs. Recently, on the 20th of May, a bomb was planted in one of the villages in the northwest, in Colombia, and which was effective. So they get to develop new forms of making bombs and so on and so forth. And of course, we have many people who got to leave the village. These are real pictures of the northwest region, specifically, which is like the epicenter of the whole crisis. And much more is happening. You can see people asking for total independence. There's some other part of people, some other faction asking for federation because they believe, well, independence may not be very necessary. But this is actually the problem that the government, is having. The government does not want to hear about this, the complete independence, because that also means taking away all the, resources and so on and so forth. And the way forward here is nonviolence. There has been a lot of work. There is a lot of work going on. I am the Executive Director of Silver Line in Africa. We do work with young people, but since 2019, we've been working with IDPs, internally displaced persons, and we've been training them on money-making skills, basically. We believe it's a way of making peace because the majority are being recruited because they don't have anything to eat, they don't have where to go to, and so on. So we do train them money-making skills, and for some, we actually give little funding. A lot more organizations are doing this, and there's been a lot of training on peace and conflict resolution. As my brother Riley said, some people think they are actually doing peace or they are trying to make peace, but they don't know what peace is actually, or what peace is actually about. And in the course of making peace, sometimes they rather generate more and more conflict. And the same thing with the government in the course of trying to make, to bring about peace or to bring about the solution. With mostly cosmetic solutions, they bring about more and more conflict in the Northwest and the Southwest regions. Of course, you can see some of the groups, the youth groups, women movement, CSOs, of course, our organization, and many more organizations that are doing great work in the Northwest and Southwest regions. Thank you very much. Let me end here.
Thank you so much. I got nervous at the beginning, and I didn't tell you about the conversation, but now I'm going to do it to introduce Jihad, that is going to be now. So these Occupied People's Forum has been going on for a few years now, and it's an ongoing conversation that has become an independent semi-formal network. This conversation actually happened had an episode in the previous conference in Juba, where several conversations were happening there, and now we just have the two representatives from the African continent in this forum. And now we're going to invite Jihad, that's coming from representing the U.S. Black Liberation Movement that just took the U.S. to an international tribunal for genocide. So please, Jihad.
You guys gotta move. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalamu ala Muhammadin Nabi wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Ahmed. In the name of Allah, most gracious, most merciful, all praise be to Allah. Peace and blessings be upon Muhammad, his family, and all of his companions all together. And indeed, peace and blessings to each and every one of you. I'd like to thank Professor Matt. He's my comrade, and I do mean that. And I have some other comrades here, Sister Get in the back, Comrade Kali Akuno and his beautiful wife, Saka, which you'll hear presentations from tomorrow. So I did not come across the Atlantic Ocean just to give you an analysis. I have three things I want to present to you. I want to explain the nuance of colonization, or neocolonialism, I should say, of Black, brown, and indigenous people inside the most wealthiest country in the world, a country where many Africans want to go just to visit Manhattan. So I'm going to let you know what the deal is with us for the last 400 years and what you're going to see when you get there, not as a tourist, but as a conscious person looking to see what you need to see politically, economically, and socially. So I want to bring out some of those nuances that you need to have. Before I start, I'd like to give a good 10-second silence for our comrades, sisters, and brothers in Palestine and Gaza, if you will. Thank you. I'm listening to the wonderful presentations that went before, but what we have to realize is who we're dealing with. When we say, why are we not responding? Do you know what colonialism is?
Do you know how it deprives your mind? Do you know what it's done to you? Do you know how it's gutted you? Do you know how it's causes us to kill each other, to be ignorant, to be scared to death, xenophobia? Do you know what colonialism is? Do you know what it is? Why an Israeli soldier would target a kid purposely and shoot him? It's the same mentality that would hang a black person from a tree and have a picnic around him. That would castrate us and throw us at the bottom of the lake. It's the same mentality. So do not, for 1 second, ask a question that you know the answer to if you know who the enemy is. If you know what colonialism is, you won't ask some of them questions. You see what it's done to us. Why in Africa it's been gutted out by European powers, gutted out, the most resourceful place on the planet Earth. They gutted you just like they gutted us. And they're going to continue to gut us. So my points are, I'm going to explain to you some nuances. I'm going to ask of you 2 questions. One is a need, and one is a specific question that my comrades tomorrow is going to follow up on. We need it from you. It's hard to organize slaves that are comfortable with their oppression. It is hard to organize, educate slaves, mobilize them, put them in revolutionary formations, if you will, that are comfortable with their oppression. And in the United States, that's one of the things that's happening. Even in the throes of slavery, where Harriet Tubman, who is the chairwoman of the Underground Railroad, is alleged to have said she freed 300 and some slaves. She could have freed 1,000 more if they only knew they were slaves. If an African only knew they were colonized. If you only knew who your enemy was. Some of the things that colonialism does is desensitizes us. We ask the question, why don't we respond and invest into the peace initiatives? Why do we kill each other? I'm going to name some right now. Ignorance. Ignorance is just not you being lame and dumb. Ignorance is you're not aware of your situation or even how you got there. Ignorance is you chasing the carrot that the colonizers wave in your face and you're trying to grab it all the time. That's ignorance. You're ignorantly pursuing a materialist lifestyle that was not even intended for you. And they're going to prop up some entertainers and some athletes for you to expire after and put some jackanapes, some clowns on TV so that you can laugh and enjoy yourself. And one day hope that you'll get there. And the United States has a lot of crumbs to throw at us. A lot of crumbs, cars, spinning wheels, flat TVs, cell phones, all kinds of modernity, entertainment. Enough to keep you distracted and happily chasing after the slave master. That's what it's done to us. And I'm bringing this to the spaces because the United States is responsible for a lot of the colonization that you see around the world today. They are financing the slaughter of our Ghanaian sisters and brothers. Our tax money is paying for that. There's not a damn thing we can barely do about it. But my sisters and brothers, tomorrow they're going to present a program to you that you may want to consider for yourself. It's called Building a People's Senate and some other initiatives that we have going on. So what is genocide? Genocide is killing members of a group. They killed enough black people, indigenous people, and brown people in the United States, tens of thousands. And we call it slow genocide. We had a tribunal in 2021 charged the United States government with the genocide of black and brown indigenous people. And lo and behold, this international tribunal, which Comrade Matt organized these jurists, they found the United States guilty, but we already know that. But the strategy there was, sisters and brothers, was we was trying to couch what we were saying in more legal terms, so it don't come off like I'm coming off to you right now, too strong, scared your grandmother or your aunt is scared to death to even have me sit in the living room. I got it. But when it's couched in legal terms, you might can relate to that. Because a body is a body. There's a body there. There's a whole bunch of bodies there. Don't need no political analysis for that. You know what murder is. You know what mass murder is. You know what it is. You ask a brother, man, sister, lady coming out of the store, supermarket, or getting her hair done in the United States. What is Zionism? They may not know. What? I'm not sure, but they know what white supremacy is. They know what white racism is. We've been experiencing it for 400 years. And the Israeli government is a white supremacist government. Joe Biden, the president of the United States, says he's a Zionist. Theodore Herzl started, had nothing to do with Judaism. That's a whole red herring that they got us looking after. We're anti-Semitic. What the heck you talking about? I just gave a prayer on the Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, who's a cousin related to Moses, connected with the Judaic faith. But we don't know. We're ignorant. And they're going to run that anti-Semitic stuff on us to make it seem like it's Islam, Muslims against the Jews. It's not about that. It's humanity against white racism. That's what it is. That's what happened to Africa. The French, we just heard Comrade Rudolf break it down. The British, the French, the Germans, the Portuguese, they gutted us and they're still doing it. They colonized our mind in the United States as neocolonialism. That means at July the 4th, 1776, gained our independence. That was the initiation of a thing called neocolonialism. And pretty soon we're going to be celebrating something called Juneteenth. If you've never heard of it, don't worry, you ain't missing the damn thing. Juneteenth. That's also the initiation of neocolonialism in the United States. And we are neocolonial. You know why I wear these thick beads? It's a statement to say that I believe in Allah and I F you colonial leaders. The best I can, dress in everything. That to colonialism, the best I can. I want to tell you also, I was a member of the Black Panther Party and Black Liberation Army. You see how I talk? That's how I act. We are freedom fighters with weapons. I was a former political prisoner for 23 years. You understand what I'm saying? Do you understand what I'm saying? Do you know what the cost of freedom is? Haj Malik al-Shabazz said it very clearly. The cost of freedom is death. I don't care if you go it peacefully or not. You think you're going to slide right up underneath these oppressors? They don't think that they know what you're doing? Peaceful protests in the United States, and I'm almost done, comrades. Fascism is going to increase and intensify regardless if you're peaceful or if you pick up a gun and fight. They're developing laws in the United States that make it almost illegal for you to demonstrate and practice your so-called First Amendment rights. Cop City is a building of police complexes across the United States that's connected with Israeli Defense Forces. So these white racist soldiers can come in the United States and train us, including black police officers, to kill us. And when the protesters are in the park and maybe throw a brick or bottle, they get charged with terrorism. Well, them white folks that bombed the Capitol on January 6th and killed 6 people, none of them got charged with terrorism. But you, sister, lady, brother, man, you're going to get charged with terrorism for being in that park demonstrating and exercising your First Amendment rights. And I know some of you may be swiveling in your mind by the tone of my voice, but I don't care about that neither. You know what peace means in the United States? It means peaceful demonstration means disrupting the normalcy of oppression. It means disrupting the normalcy of exploitation, of social degradation, of racism, of patriarchy. That's what it means. It's not walking around with a flower. So as one brother said, we're going to connect the academic with the activism. The academics is important to articulate, analyze what we're doing. But brother, man, sister, lady on the street ain't going to read that. But the academics need to be responsible, and the activists need to be responsible to bridge that gap between one another, so that I can read your books. I can read it, and I can go out in the street corner and say, yo, brother, man, this is what's happening. Because I can articulate that. You understand? The academics is important. You need me. You need this brother. You need Matt. We need to be out there, and we are out there. We're going to articulate what you read. You're going to see what we do. You're going to reanalyze that. You're going to write some more books. We're going to codify our history. It's going to take that type of unity amongst us. Do y'all feel what I'm saying?
Yes.
Do you feel what I'm saying?
I feel it.
All right, we're going to tell. Because Luis Rosa said in Trinidad, the IPRA conference we had there, he said, peace movement requires a lot of people. When we say all power to the people, that's a numbers game. If there's nobody there, there's no power to the people. All power to the people means that all of us, we need to really do all we can to organize. because if a guerrilla war starts, you only need 1 or 2 people. I get one of them shotguns too, put my work in, and there we go. There we go. So if you want peace, we want to make sure we're doing all that we can. So here's my ask, and then I'll shut the heck up. It is important that we in the United States make clear what I just said to you. And I know sometimes it's a cognitive dissonance because you're looking at the most modern country. You know, the United States military budget takes. Colleague, tell me if I'm wrong. It's more than the top 15 countries, including Russia and China. 20 countries. 75. It's almost $900 billion. You talk about an Iron Dome. Anything that you do that you think you can do to a place called the United States, I guarantee you it's like throwing spaghetti against the wall. Anything that you think you can do against the United States of America will be like throwing spaghetti against the wall. But what we can do, as a comrade Jalil Muttaqin said, and he wrote a book, coined the phrase, we are our own liberators. So here's my first ask of the 2. We need you to acknowledge our situation in the United States. We need you to acknowledge the movements in the United States, what we're trying to do. Not to listen to ABC, CNN, and all that, but to tune into what we do. There's your conduit right there, Comrade Matt Myers, Kali Akun. It had to do with me. You need to tune in because Malcolm X, Al-Haj Malik El-Shabazz says that when we look at it just nationally, we look so small. But when it's international, we're powerful. You feel me? So we're coming to you, and I'm here to present this message to you the way I'm doing it. I don't speak soft. Ain't soft in the Black Liberation Army. It's not soft. We're freedom fighters. The last thing I want to ask you, when my comrades, Kali and Saka and Iget and my comrade here, Shannon Jones, speaks tomorrow, we need you to make that solid connection. We cannot make this trip just an exercise in academic explaining what's happening in the United States. No, we need some action. And so therefore, the United States is this country. And no, we need to hear with some type of action plan of what we in the United States are going to do for you and vice versa. We need that. We have some literature to pass out tomorrow. That's what I'm asking. If I offended anybody, I apologize. You just got to get used to the BLA, the Black Panther in the bedroom. I mean, excuse me, did I say outside? I mean, in the living room. Bad choice of words. Get used to the Black Panther. We need more Black Panthers. And I'm looking at a whole room full of Black Panthers right now. Give yourself all power to the people. All power to the people. All power to the people. Subhanaka Allahumma wa bihamdika ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Thank you, everybody, for letting me vent to you. We got a lot of building to do. My comrade Moses, thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum.
Well, thank you. I think we're going to receive a couple questions, but before I would like to point some ideas here because I think it's important. Since the very morning, we've been trying to insist on some of these things, and we started talking about levels of hypocrisy and realizing what we have right in front of our eyes, and then we are closing talking about the need of disruption and the need on an action plan, not only to gather at the conference to hear just in the academic level, but to understand what does these academical productions, but this actually gathering here from all of you can bring to a different perspective to what we are discussing. Fight ignorance, organize, work liberation starting from yourself. You all do what you can as we can, as we are freedom fighters. So we're going to take some questions from the audience. Do we have how much time for the questions, guys?
We have 19 minutes. So if you are going to 19, yes. Like let's say 20 minutes. Right. So if you are going to ask, please summarize it if you're going to make a comment because people are also tired. So, and people need to go have some food and some rest. So any comments, questions?
answers. Yes.
Thank you so much. So first of all, let me say thanks so much to Dr. George and the team, because it's my first time. You go to a conference where people are free, they can present in any language of their choice and so on. Because some conferences were limited. Yes, just English. Or else pack your presentation and so on. It was good. My brother there and the interpreter. Now, Brother Rudolf, your situation in Cameroon, can you see that coming to an end where the two parts of the Cameroon, if I can put it that way, coming together? And the other thing also, because I'm a soccer fan, in your national team, do you have also players from the other Cameroon? I don't know if I can go to the Anglophone Cameroon also be part of the main team for Cameroon and so on. Thank you.
Any
I present presentations, and especially for Rudolf, we have not discussed much at the level of crisis. Unfortunately, we share similarities. What is that scenario? We were Sudan. We were Sudan before we became South Sudan. And all those characteristics, all those explanations you explained were things that we infected around. And that was why there were a lot of movements in Sudan, a lot of rebel movements in South Sudan, the struggle for independence. And we kept the consistency of the struggle against the government Khartoum. And so many agreements signed, and so many agreement is found between the South and the North. And our population by then was also the same as the population. The population of the government of the northern Sudanese who are Arabs in Sudan were more than the population of South Sudanese. And today we are about 12 million. And by then we were less than 12 million. And the population of North is more than 20 million. And at the time we got independence. As the country, as the level of crisis continued to go, the international community and the level of the resistance from the Southern Sudanese begin to build up. And the government in Khartoum begin to receive a lot of pressure, both from internal and from the international community. At the end, from the churches, from civil society organizations, from the international community, from the World Council of Churches, from all sorts of peace-loving individuals. Eventually, in 2005, the agreement was signed. And not a simple agreement. The agreement took 2 years. 2 years discussions. That's why people were able to arrive at the conclusion for comprehensive peace agreement in South Sudan. And in 2011, we went to plebiscite, and we got the independence of South Sudan. I know it is a matter of time. Our experience of the demonstration for ourselves. And for jihad, the presentation you made is something very, is a big lesson to learn from. And the experience of Nova. Some of us also born in the refugee camps. Some of us grew in refugee camps. The experience that you have undergone, we went through it. And what I can advise is just the consistency and the level of support you need. And what is that you want some of us to support you? How do you want us to support you? Is things that you can contribute here or in your country. Thank you very much.
Thanks to all of you for the presentations. I must confess that I love that flag. I wish everything comes to an end and we are able to see it at the national level. The colors are beautiful. But then to Brother Jihad, you remind me of a time when we had the second president of Kenya. My name is Deola from Kenya. And there was this time that Mandela came to visit Kenya and there was a demonstration on the street. And in their conversation with the president, Mandela asked, what is the noise about? And the response from the president was that those are a few disgruntled fellows, otherwise madmen. And I like that madness, because if we all want to stay normal, we might never get where we want to go. And it reminds me of an old African story that if you go to every marketplace, you'll always find a madman. But what happens to you when you go to a marketplace and everybody else is mad? Thank you.
Thank you all for the presentation. My question is directed to Rudolf. So the nature of the conflict that we just presented, eventually it creates warlords who might end up not fighting for the conflict, but for their benefits. Are all Ambazonians still fighting for peace? Some of them is now intelligent.
Hi, I wanted to maybe ask a question about the focus on peace and nonviolence, particularly in thinking about what has happened in the U.S. There is a scholar and activist named Akinele Umoja who came out with a book, We'll Shoot Back, and it focuses on how some of the civil rights, or rather efforts towards voting rights in the South, were facilitated by both nonviolent and violent strategies, if you will, and that they were at times interconnected in sort of the outcome of what people were trying to obtain. So I wondered if you two could talk a bit more about that. And of course, Jihad, if you can add to, any critiques of that or if you know that work. Because I'm seeing this clear binary of nonviolence versus violent peace. And it seems to be wrapped up in some of the top-down North or Western or white supremacist logic. So I'm hoping we could disentangle that more today and tomorrow.
Okay, my question goes to Western Sahara and Ambazonia.
Can you just give me 1 second to
Okay.
finish the translation first? Entonces, en esa combinación de lo que están presentando, si pueden hablar un poco más sobre la relación de violencia, no violencia, si son necesariamente opuestos, binarios, o qué tipo de relación podría plantearse para salir un poco como de esa lógica que a veces se nos impone desde
Okay, as I've said, my question goes to Rudolf and a friend from Western Sahara. I am from South Sudan, and as my colleague said, we have been on a struggle for more than 50 years, and eventually we got it. Unfortunately, we have not shown a good example for a country that has actually fought for independence and was able to excel, and say, look, we are making this difference. So my question to you, I don't know whether you have started, in addition to the goals of your struggle, or for independence struggle, I don't know whether you have started the conversation on how you would like to be governed once you attain the independence, because that is actually where we have gone wrong. During the years of liberation, our leaders keep on saying, look, let us first of all kill the elephant. And once the elephant is dead, we will know what to do next. And that's where we fail. So I don't want to see you people fail. That's why I'm asking you whether the conversation about how you want it to be governed, whether that conversation has already started before you get the independence. Thank you.
Can a moderator also comment? I just wanted to add on what Committee Jihad was saying.
¿Cómo quisieran ser gobernados si alcanzaran ya la independencia? ¿Cómo han imaginado poder ser gobernados? ¿Qué tipo de gobierno les gustaría tener? Si ya alcanzar la independencia, ¿qué tipo de gobierno?
Just to add on to what Comrade Jihad was saying, that we, even the term, this Pan-Africanism that we are talking about today and we are expanding on, actually came from Africans who were formerly enslaved. This thing came from across the Atlantic. Yeah? And why? Why wasn't it territorial? Why wasn't it like a nationalist project that became a nationalist project? Was because the black people didn't own the land out there. So it escaped the nuances of xenophobia and all of that. And then there was that exchange also between the continent and the diasporas of Africa, in building a sort of a black internationalism, which qualitatively changed into an Africanism again, with when Malcolm made his tour and came to Africa and met other revolutionaries across the continent, across the world, to build a Pan-Africanism, that goes beyond the ethos of black nationalism or internationalism. And it reached its really fullness with Pan-Africanism when Kwame Ture, during building the All-African People Revolutionary Party and organizing for Pan-Africanism as the global sort of thing for African people. And it's very important that, Brother Jihad is talking about, bringing the concerns of Africans out in America, to recreate that black internationalism, that African internationalism, and that Pan-Africanism, because these are things that, are part of our revolutionary traditions and currents, and we need to revive them, and we need to, continue that genealogy of rebellions and resistance.
Just, you maybe open up a can of worms. I'm Khalid Kuno with Cooperation Jackson, based in Jackson, Mississippi. But just one correction to the phases that was talked about. So between roughly the 1620s to about the 1780s, there were a number of maroon settlements all throughout the Americas, North America and South America, but also in the Caribbean, where black folks were in control and were engaged in international, we would call now international solidarity, amongst the different quilombos or the different maroon society that existed, and provided a tremendous amount of mutual aid, fighting techniques, etc. This is an element of history which is seriously downplayed and seriously not written about, which was very critical for how the Western Hemisphere wound up being settled and wound up becoming what it became, and why, in particular, beginning in the basically the 18th and 19th centuries, there was such a concerted effort, particularly on behalf of the British and the Spanish in particular, and the Portuguese, to Europeanize the American colony. Because during the first 200 years, Africans and indigenous people were actually in the majority. And of the folks who came from this side of the hemisphere, Africans and outnumbered Europeans on the total throughout the Western Hemisphere. So there was always this threat that, those of us who were shipping human cargo, if we had united and had access to, enough advanced military techniques and equipment, we could have totally destroyed their Western colonial projects, right? And there's a couple of good books that you're not familiar with, I want folks to read, where a lot of this history is just not covered, but it's thoroughly documented. The first one is look for Gerald Horne. He's actually done a series on this. The first one is called The Counter-Revolution of 1776, which totally underscores what the United States Revolution was about. Totally just destroyed this fiction that it was about equality and anything. It was about two issues: the perpetuation of chattel slavery and the dispossession of indigenous peoples in their land. That's what that whole thing was about. Don't be confused by nothing else, about all that rhetoric about what, the all men are created equal and all that's bullshit. The bottom line is about stealing people and stealing land, and that's still fundamentally what it is on a global level. And why they support Israel and what they are, colonizers support each other to the end. and the world system still operates on that way. But I think it's a critical piece because this is a phase of Pan-Africanism which is not written that way and is not talked about in that way, primarily because of the written record of it is so obscure, right? And that was primarily during a period where, if anything, it would have been written primarily in Creoles or Pidgin English or the indigenous languages that our folks still spoke when they were over in maroon societies. So the records we have of it are obscure European records that talked about, you know, there's a group of runaways who live up in the hills and who fighting back or there's X, Y, and Z. But it was massive and it was extensive, and it took a great deal of work on the Europeans to put this down, particularly in the 1700s when their whole nation building project in the Western Hemisphere began to take root. So, and the piece that's interesting, there's another book I'll recommend. It's about pirates. I'll pull it up, but it's a great book about pirates and about the democratic nature of how piracy actually operates, right? Particularly in the Caribbean, and how many black folks were pirate captains and pirate leaders, and it totally flips this narrative of well, who and what this was about, and how many of them were involved in the abolitionist movement. So that's just a good book that talks about how this pirate network extended the conversation about, yo, they have a Colombo down in Brazil that's doing X, Y, and Z, that then inspired folks in Jamaica or Grenada or Haiti to then take up arms and do the same. And so how they were facilitating and communicating along this route. So it's one of these kind of subtle things about how things actually move, as opposed to how the Europeans recorded they were supposed to move through official channels. So there's a lot of history that we need to uncover. And I'm bringing it up now because I think there's a lot of subtle ways in which we're going to have to learn how to operate in this new age where the age of surveillance capitalism is such that it is hard for us to do almost anything that is required to move a revolutionary agenda without it being found out by the enemy first. So we're going to have to figure out some new ways and some new techniques to share, collaborate, and exchange with each other. I'll stop there.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much for the questions. I'm sure maybe the answers are certainly going to throw more light on what's happening in Ambazonia. But you know, in Cameroon, there is a saying that is very, very popular among us now, those of us living there, that if they explain Cameroon to you and you understand, that means they did not explain it well. So if you say you've understood Cameroon, that means the explanation was not well. Or probably you do not, you don't know what you're talking about. The same thing with the Ambazonia crisis. It's been going on for more than 7 years, and there's a lot to say. 1 hour, 2 hours will not be enough to talk about it. So I just had to hit on the major points so that we can have at least a background and also read some documents. There are many documents on that online. And I've also been doing some work, writing more about the struggle in Amazonia, especially from the linguistic perspective. And also I'm a poet, so I've written a good number of poems, I'm hitting on that. So the first question, if the two parts can actually come together. Yes, I think everybody can come together. It's just like saying, for example, can the Maroons and the Africans in Brazil, in the US, and Africans everywhere in the world, can they come together? Of course, yes. That's what everybody wants. But there are aspects that must be clear for such come together to be. But with the case with Cameroon is a little more close because already we are together. Politically, we are together, and but the separation comes at the level of the culture and also the mindset, because there is, I will not really know how to describe that at the moment, but there is a complete distrust in the other. So the Anglophones completely distrust the Francophones, up to the point where we distrust Francophone pastors. So if someone is preaching to an Anglophone in French, it's technically like the person is not preaching at all, like the person is not a Christian. So it's gone to that level where there is a complete distrust in the other person, because we believe that the Francophones, we feel and we actually see it on a daily basis, the Francophones want everything for themselves, and it's difficult, almost impossible to live with them. More to that, we have two different cultures. We were colonized by the British, and they gave us their language, gave us their education, gave us their judicial system, they gave us their religion and almost everything. And now we behave more like the British, and which we are completely different from the French. Okay, that come together may only be politically, it may only be as a country, in case some of the initial problems are being solved. Then we can probably start trusting each other again, but the trust is not there at the moment. Yes, I don't know if that answers a little bit, but okay.
Now the other thing I want to know, in your national team, you want to say that it's
yes, I got it. Oh yes, we have out of the 22 players at the moment, we have one footballer from the English region of Cameroon, and across the years, we never have more than 3. So that can already start telling you, what the country looks like. It's not like we don't have the talent. We have wonderful talent playing out of the country. We have a lot of players in India, especially. We have a lot of Anglophone players in India, in West Papua, and other, just specific places. But we've never had more than 3 in the national team at the time. So you can understand what I'm talking about. Great. And the question from Light, if there are any agreements signed, well, it wasn't really a question, but I think I got a couple of points. The case of South Sudan, there were different agreements and so on that were being signed up to 2005, and then 2011 there was a plebiscite. But the problem with Ambazonia is this, which is actually one of the things that is just fueling the thing and making people even more and more angry and causing more and more distrust. The government does not want to talk about it. The government does not want to hear about it. In 2020, there was a national dialogue that was organized by the president. And this national dialogue, accordingly, was supposed to bring, it was supposed to be an Anglophone, Francophone issue to dialogue on the problem between Anglophone Cameroon and Francophone Cameroon. But now they said, no, this dialogue is not, the only problem is not with Anglophones. We also have problems in the east, we have problems in the north, and so on. So they brought people from everywhere, from the whole country, to talk about their challenges. But that doesn't mean that wasn't really a move to solve the problem. And more to that, the people that were involved, which is going to answer the question by Light, actually the people that were supposed to be at the national dialogue were not there. And who are these people? There was a government that was already made. So a government was created in 2017. That's when, or just after when the flag was developed. There is a national anthem. And there are many other things that were being developed. And so there was already, a government in place hoping for the takeover. And this government was constituted of both people from the northwest region and the southwest region. There are 2 main regions that form Anglophone Cameroon. And those from the diaspora and those from within, the country. Of course, those from the diaspora, because they couldn't come back. Most of them had been exiled. Those who started the struggle over 30 years ago had been exiled. So they could not come back. But now there was already a government. But in 2018, this government, the entire government, was arrested in Nigeria. And up to now, nobody knows what judicial myths or judicial, I don't know whatsoever we can call it, happened for Cameroon to influence the arrest of people having a conference like this in Nigeria and then send them over to Cameroon. And now it did not follow the normal procedure of, how they call it again? Extradition.
Yeah.
Yes, it did not follow the procedure of extradition. And that is why the case in court is still there up to today. The people are still in prison. The president himself of Ambazonia, well, in court, had been, was part of the meeting, and all of them were arrested. They came for a meeting in Cross River State. They were arrested and all, sent to Cameroon in Yaoundé. So they have been in prison ever since. I guess that answers the question. A little bit.
Yeah.
Well, just to say, at least there were moves.
Okay. That's okay.
Yes, there were moves, but we never know what can actually happen after independence. I think there was a comment here that, which was given to one of our brothers presenting, that when you actually get those positions, when you actually get those powers, there's a possibility that things get to change. So you can be advocating for something, and then once you get there, things. So there's that possibility, but already a government had been made, and a lot of preparation was being made for that. There was even an identification card that was made, and people were already acquiring. So just to say a few preparations.
So sorry, just so that like what you said, are you ready? Do you have a vision so that when you get there, you won't experience what they are now experiencing? I think you got that.
Yes, certainly there is that's where there is a little contradiction between South Sudan and actually we have almost the same history, almost the same histories. But now when it comes to preparedness, at least there were moves towards preparedness or towards being prepared, like creating a government, coming up with different statutes and so on. There was already a penal code. There was like everything, was being had been developed even before 2017. So now the implementation is what would have mattered in case we got the independence earlier.
Because what was those?
Okay, well, I can't really tell what would have happened. So we all okay.
Maybe trying to become a nation state in emulation of colonization that created all of these problems to begin with.
Maybe.
Yeah. And you also become greed like what?
Possible.
Yeah.
And the last question came from our brother from Zimbabwe. Are all Ambazonians still fighting for freedom? Of course, no. And I am ashamed to say that, but I wonder if there are actually Ambazonians who have, infiltrated the struggle. At the moment, I cannot go to my village, for example, because if I go to my village, they are going to kidnap me for not staying in the village throughout the crisis. And if you are rich in the northwest or southwest region, you are in trouble. You must try to become poor. Which means if you have a car, you don't need to leave the car there. You need to send the car out and begin to walk on foot. If not, you are going to be kidnapped. Now, the military also kidnaps people. The military have also formed their own groups, and they don't want the thing to end because they make a lot of money. There have been cases where even the government reported where they sent trucks of plantain to be delivered in military camps, and those trucks of plantains were deviated to somebody's house, a general's house or a colonel's house. So nobody really wants it to end. There are warpreneurs that have entered into it, and they are making a lot of money. So the struggle remains, but we have a second struggle, which is that of insecurity. And even if the insecurity struggle is being solved, which basically that's what the government is trying to solve, and not going back to the initial problem, if that problem is being solved, they still need to go back to the initial root of it. If not, it will come back. I think I've answered the questions that I received. Thank you very much.
Thank you. The meeting here tonight.
Hola, otra vez. Estoy muy contento de estar aquí en este diálogo positivo.
I'm very happy to be here and be very positive. I'm very happy to be here in this very positive dialogue.
La primera pregunta que yo quiero responder ahí es la pregunta de nuestro compañero de sur de Sudán. Pues primero quiero decirle que felicidades por su independencia, por su lucha para la independencia.
Then the first question I like to ask and to respond is from our friend from South Sudan that I congratulate on their 50 years of struggle and gaining independence.
Si su pregunta es que si fuéramos gobernadores después de la independencia, ¿qué vamos a hacer? Porque voy a comprar 3 bombas nucleares.
Okay, so in the question on how do we imagine being governed after regaining independence, I'm going to throw 3 nuclear bombs.
Es una broma. Es una broma.
I'm just kidding.
Después de cada independencia, creo que siempre hay problemas internos en cualquier país después de la independencia. Estos problemas siempre en unos temas de, por ejemplo, de problemas tribalistas, por ejemplo, conflictos entre tribalistas, entre los tribus, o entre partidos izquierda o derecha.
So after any independence, I think there's always problems and there's always internal conflicts. Let's say, for example, among tribes or ethnic communities or even parties as well.
En este tema, nosotros en África creo que tenemos una buena experiencia, un país que fue con una experiencia muy positiva, que es Ruanda.
In Africa, I believe we have a very good experience happened before us with Rwanda.
Es una experiencia que tenemos que seguir nosotros todos los países de África para llegar a un desarrollo como el que llega a Ruanda. Entonces, la mejor manera es entrar en un diálogo nacional.
So if we can all follow the example of Rwanda, that after consolidating independence also brought together a national dialogue.
Porque a través de este diálogo nos vamos a llegar a un paz,
Because
a una justicia.
It's just through this dialogue that we can gain and attain to reach peace and justice.
Y para llegamos a un objetivo que es la persona correcta en el puesto correcto.
And to reach the right person in the right position.
Entonces, de esta manera podemos llegar después de la independencia a un lugar de paz, a un estado que vive en paz, a un estado desarrollado.
So it's in this way that after independence we can reach a development for the state and the society.
Si llegamos a un punto que estamos muy fuerte de interno, nos vamos a llegar que en externo también estamos de un fuerte estado. Entonces tenemos que solucionar todos nuestros problemas internos para que entramos en una lucha externa contra los países y para también que plantear o fortalecer unas buenas relaciones con nuestros vecinos estados o con el mundo entero.
So we need to first figure and organize our internal conflicts so we can then deal with whatever external other relationships we need to create with neighbors, other countries, or even with other kind of tensions.
La segunda pregunta de nuestro compañero que es ¿qué puede hacer ellos a nuestra lucha? Lo que tiene.
So about the other question, and how can you contribute to the struggle of the Western Sahara people?
Lo que la primera cosa que tienes que saber que el Sahara Occidental no es Marruecos. No digo esto porque soy saharaui, porque es la verdad. Históricamente y tradicionalmente y culturalmente los saharauis no son marroquíes.
So the first thing is that you really need to understand that the Sahrawi people is not Moroccan. This is not who we are. We are not, and we have never been Moroccans. And this is very important for the history of my people and my community for you to understand that.
Tengo mucho respeto al pueblo de Marruecos, pero no soy marroquí y nunca voy a ser marroquí. Es porque es una verdad. Tienes que saber, el Sahara Occidental fue una colonia de España. En el periodo de la estadia de España no hay ningún mártir de Marruecos en este periodo. Después de la salida de España al Sahara Occidental, entran los marruecos y dicen el Sahara Occidental es nuestra tierra.
So I'm not just saying this because I'm Sahrawi, but because our history is very different, and we were before a Spanish colony, And then after that is when Morocco takes our lands. So we have never, ever been part of Morocco. And I have a lot of respect for Moroccan people, but I am not from Morocco. I'm not Moroccan.
Entonces, para apoyar a cualquier conflicto, tienes que buscar a la verdad y no tienes que escuchar a los medios internacionales porque ellos practican una hipocresía, ellos dicen lo que quieren los gobiernos. Entonces, los medios ahora en estos momentos, en estos años, ya no son una buena fuente de noticias o de algo así.
So if you want to help somehow, you have to first know that you cannot trust the media, because the media just tells whatever they want to say. So you have to also come out of this misinformation and to be aware of our history. Thank you.
As a follow-up question, Sahara. Most of us know of Polisario, and we offer solidarity to Polisario. What would you say your views or your organization's view on Polisario?
Ellos conocen y han conocido de Polisario y de su existencia, y quisieran conocer tus puntos de vista o los de tu organización en relación con Polisario.
Mira, el Frente Polisario es el representante del pueblo saharaui, tiene representantes en Unión Nacional, en Europa, cada país tiene también el Frente Polisario tiene representantes de más de 90 países que reconocen el Sahara Occidental como un Estado. Hay una diferencia, por ejemplo, entre mi organización o la opinión de mi organización, que es NOVA, que trabaja para la no violencia y la lucha pacífica. Pero últimamente, después del 2020, el Frente Polisario ha salido con una petición para regresar a la lucha armada. Entonces, hay una diferencia entre la no violencia o la resistencia pacífica y la lucha armada. Quiero decir que mi organización ve que la lucha armada es la mejor manera para llegar a una solución pacífica para que el pueblo saharaui obtenga su independencia, pero también quiero decir que la lucha armada es una decisión respecto a la lucha armada. ¿Por qué respecto a la lucha armada? Porque desde 91 estamos en unos campamentos refugiados, nadie habla de este conflicto. Nadie quiere saber la realidad de estos conflictos, especialmente los países grandes como Estados Unidos o Europa. Y cuando regresamos a la lucha armada, o cuando regresa el Frente Polisario a la lucha armada después del 2020, hemos visto que la Unión Nacional de Europa están tomando de una forma positiva con el Frente Polisario. Dicen al Frente Polisario que tienes que parar la guerra, tienes que parar la lucha armada para obtener una solución pacífica. Entonces,
Okay. He says that the Frente Polisario has a lot of representatives in Europe, but also in more than 90 different countries that recognize Western Sahara as a state. But then he also points that after 2020, when Polisario declared that they were taking back the arms struggle, and in that sense, our organization, working from non-violent means and from a pacifist perspective, is taking like a little distance from this. Because even though we respect the armed struggle, and even though we are since the 91 in refugee camps, and even though nobody wants to know and nobody seems to know about us and about our existence, we will, as an organization, we do believe and trust in the non-armed struggle. So they are not supportive of that choice.
Entonces, la resistencia pacífica es una solución, pero también la resistencia, la lucha armada También puedes obtener tu solución a través de la lucha armada si tienes derecho, si tienes el derecho para llegar a tu objetivo, a tu independencia. Y también históricamente vemos muchos ejemplos en el sur de África, en India, en muchos países de África, en Argelia. Siempre hay una lucha pacífica y también en el mismo tiempo hay una lucha armada.
So we do believe in pacific resistance, but we also understand and have been seeing that both the armed struggle, but also the non-violent resistance are just like two different ways to obtain and to gain results. So he recognizes and acknowledges that there's many examples in the south of the continent, in Algeria, in many countries, that there are always been like the two ways in this combination, but he says they stand in this pacific resistance.
Am I answering the question? You got a question? Yeah, the question.
Well, there were different comments for you
Yeah,
throughout.
comment. I do know that Ubuntu in the United States means to give a story. So this colonizer had these African children line up, and he had some candy at the end of the race that he was beckoning them to do. And so when he said, when you mark, get set, go, they locked arms and walked together. That's how we understand it in the United States. Very simple. It's real talk. You know, Ujamaa, is cooperative economics. Very simple to understand. And that's what we're trying to build, in terms of our own self-determination. And there are many enclaves, too, that's developing in the United States where we are doing just that. Part of the Jamaat movement and polio, we have land. A lot of other organizations are getting land. Keywords here are networking and collaboration. And that's what the key word here for me with you comrades, sisters, and brothers. I'm looking at it, like I said, a room full of Black Panthers. The key word here is networking and collaboration. That should be our key word leaving here. Networking, viable collaboration, viable communication, viable resource sharing. That's what we have to commit to leaving here. And I want to just salute Brother Light and Brother Moses, like it's the second year, 2 years, seeing them in the progress and the challenges they made in South Sudan. I was there a few years ago, because a lot of times when there's a military involved, then it kind of leads to repression of any. I mean, that's you are severing yourself, overthrowing or whatever, partitioning yourself from a colonial power, if you will. And in order for you to stay in power, you got to become more repressive than the one that you. Otherwise, somebody can just walk up and take your power. So I salute you. That's not a model that's represented in South Sudan. So we need to look at that example. And we know that there's other challenges too, financially and economically. Once again, Ujamaa, all of us together, Ubuntu, we need to lock arms together. On your mark, get set, go. And march together as African nations, 54 African nations, and the movements inside the United States of America, Ubuntu. And march, get set, go, lock arms, and make sure we're going stride by stride together. That's how we do it, because the United States teaches us to be fiercely independent, even in sports and everything, and that's part of the colonized mind that we have. So Ubuntu can be able to overcome that mindset. So that's the comments I have to make. I think it's time to make the donuts, right? Mm-hmm. That's what we say, chill.
All right, thank you all. Just for you to know, this conversation is not over. Tomorrow there's another panel that also takes the lead on this conversation. So thank you all. All right.
Before we go to dinner, I want to do one piece of housekeeping, and before our hosts give us our send-off for the evening.